You feel that, right? The sense that time is passing. But what if I told you that the past, the present, and the future all exist right now at the same time? Today we're asking a pretty wild question. Is time even real? You can feel this moment ticking by, but some of the sharpest minds in physics are starting to argue that this feeling of time flowing forward is just a powerful, convincing, and a complete illusion. Okay, let's just dive right into this. That quote from physicist Carlo Rovelli, that's not him just being philosophical over a coffee. He's talking about our most fundamental theories of the universe. You see, in the equations that try to stitch together the giant world of relativity and the tiny world of quantum mechanics, the variable t for time, it just isn't there. It completely vanishes. But, before we get totally lost in quantum gravity, let's start with something we all know really, really well, our own kind of strange experience of time. I mean, think about it, right? A summer vacation felt like an absolute eternity when you were a kid, but now a whole year can just fly by in what feels like a blink. And why does a single minute on a treadmill feel longer than a whole hour out with good friends? These little personal puzzles are our first big clue. They hint that our perception of time isn't just a perfect mirror of some big universal clock out there. Nope. Our internal experience is flexible, it's emotional, and if we're being honest, it's just a bit weird. All right, so let's get grounded for a second and look at what mainstream science has traditionally said about time and how we got to where we are today. For centuries, we were all on board with Newton's idea of a single cosmic clock. It was simple, it was absolute, it ticks the same for everyone, everywhere. But then, Einstein came along and just shattered that whole picture. He proved that time is actually relative. It can stretch, it can slow down, all depending on how fast you're moving and how strong gravity is. Time isn't some separate thing from space. They're woven together into this fabric we call space-time. So time can stretch and it can slow down, but here's where it gets really strange. When physicists try to zoom in to the most fundamental level of reality, we're talking about the Planck scale, a level so impossibly tiny we can't even see it. Time doesn't just get weird, it disappears. Completely. And this gets right to the heart of the problem. There's this thing called the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, which is supposed to describe the entire universe. And it has no time variable. It's like trying to make a cake with a recipe that doesn't mention an oven. The reason is that Einstein's smooth, flowing time just doesn't play well with the jumpy, chaotic nature of the quantum world. So in the math that tries to bring them together, time just drops out. The universe, from this point of view, is frozen. Physicist Julian Barber has this really radical way of thinking about this. He suggests that the universe isn't a story unfolding. It's more like a book that's already written. It's just a huge collection of individual, static nows or snapshots, and each one is complete and timeless all by itself. This is a brilliant way to picture it. Think about the universe like a reel of film. The motion isn't actually in any single frame of that film, right? Each frame is perfectly still. The flow, the story, the feeling that time is passing, that's something our brain creates by stringing all those static snapshots together, one after another. So, this leads to the most obvious and important question of all. If we're just living in a series of frozen moments, where in the world does this incredibly powerful feeling of time's flow come from? This feeling of a past that's gone and a future that's still on its way. Well, the answer seems to be that it's a feature of our minds, not the universe. Our brains basically create an arrow of time because of memory. In any single now, we have records, memories, of other nows. We call those memories the past. But we don't have any records of the future. And it's this fundamental imbalance that gives us that powerful sense of direction, of moving forward. Okay, so if our minds are creating the arrow of time, are there any physical things happening out in the universe that also point in that same direction? Let's take a look at some clues from the cosmos. The most famous physical arrow is something called entropy. Basically, the universe started out in a state of very low entropy, super ordered, and it has been getting more and more disordered ever since. Your coffee gets cold, your room gets messy, you can scramble an egg, but you can't unscramble it. This one-way street of increasing disorder doesn't just give time a direction, it's actually what allows memories to form in the first place. You need that physical difference between past and future to even create a record. Now, entropy is a really powerful explanation, but it might not be the whole story. Some really cutting-edge physics suggests that time doesn't come from disorder, but from something deeper, Maybe from the spooky connections of the quantum world itself.
This is the super mind-bending idea from Page and Wooders. It's all about perspective. If you could somehow stand outside the universe and look at it, a sort of God's eye view, it would look totally static, timeless. Nothing would be happening. But we can't do that. We are inside the universe. We're part of the system. And because we're inside, we use one part of the universe as a clock to measure the changes in another part. And in that simple act of comparison, change suddenly appears. Time emerges from that relationship.
And all of this leads us to what might be the most profound, and honestly, the most unsettling idea of all. It's a concept that's rooted deep in Einstein's theory of relativity.
This is what's known as the block universe theory. The idea is that just like all of space already exists, all of time already exists too. The past, the present, and the future, they are all equally real, laid out in this massive four-dimensional block of space-time. Your birth, you're watching this right now, and every single moment of your future, they all just are. And here it is, the deep, philosophical punch to the gut. If the future isn't some open realm of possibility, but a fixed landscape that already exists, what does that mean for our choices? Our deep-seated feeling of free will seems to be in a direct showdown with this picture of a fixed, timeless reality.
So after this whole journey through physics and cosmology and philosophy, where does that leave us? What's the verdict? Is time real, or is it just an illusion?
Well, the most satisfying answer seems to be that time has this kind of dual nature. For us, as a human experience, it is completely 100% real. The feeling of now, the memory of yesterday, the hope for tomorrow, that is our reality. But as a fundamental built-in property of the universe itself, yeah, probably not. Time really seems to be something that emerges, something born from thermodynamics, from the way our memory works, and from the bizarre rules of quantum physics. And that leads to this really profound thought. Maybe time isn't some river that we're all being carried along in. Maybe it's a quality of the universe that we actually help create, just by existing and observing it. Time might not be built into the universe's foundation, but it sure seems to be built directly into us.
So I'll leave you with this to chew on. If something as basic and fundamental as time might not be what it seems, what other core aspects of our reality are just waiting to be unmasked?